Welcome to The Crunch, the only podcast that has not been found on any flight manifestos at all recently.
None.
It's your boy, Ethan.
And I'm Patrick. Again, not on.
No, none. You can comb with a fine-toothed comb, and you can peel back the layers of those documents. And I just gotta say, not gonna find us.
Not there. We're not on there.
And I think that makes us brave.
I would never go on a plane.
That's just not true. I've seen you ride on planes.
I would never go on a plane to an island again. I went to one in Hawaii.
You did. You got engaged.
Different time. I did. That was cool. Anyway, thanks for joining. If you're new to the podcast, I'm Patrick. This is Ethan. Ethan and I have been podcasting together for 7 years. We became friends on our very first episode. We didn't know each other until our first episode. We've been podcasting for 7 years. We talk about Catholic living, and we make jokes, most importantly. So thanks for joining us. We're happy you're here.
Today, we're going to have a discussion about one of my favorite books of all time that I recently revisited. The Canticle. Is it the Canticle? A Canticle.
A Canticle for Leibowitz.
I got to get my definite articles right, or they're going to come and shoot me in my sleep. The grammar police. Those no-knock warrants that the grammar police are able to use are
they really get you.
They're deadly. A Canticle for Leibowitz. One of my favorite books of all time. I revisited it recently, and I want to talk about it with my buddy Patrick. But
I'm excited. But first, can I know sometimes I step on you and I tell the story.
You do. But please take it away.
Something really crazy happened to us. Well, it wasn't really crazy. It was notable. And it happened to us within the last 24 hours. So have you ever pulled...
Do I need to check our bank account?
No.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever pulled a fire alarm before?
Have I ever pulled a fire alarm before?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I've called 911, but I have not pulled the fire alarm in a building.
Yeah. So that me too until last night at 3 a.m.
What happened?
Yeah. So first of all, more to it than you might think.
It's really, you just push in and you pull down. It's not that of a complex of a maneuver.
I did not pull it down the entire way the first time. I went downstairs, halfway down, realized it was not going off, had to go back up and pull it. So you
got all the way downstairs before you realized there's not an ear-piercing siren and bells going off.
Halfway. I got halfway down because I thought there might be a delay. All right. Also, they don't. I was like, what about the liquid that you spray? Oh, that's probably.
You're like Wile E. Coyote. He like shoots a gun and it doesn't go off, so he turns it around and looks down the barrel, and then he blows his own head off. That's you, but with a fire alarm.
But yeah, so my wife and I were awoken early this morning at 2 a.m. to our smoke detector going off. All right.
Okay.
So smoke detector was going off. My first thought was, this humidifier that Katie got me is way too good. Because it was like hazy in the room. It was like white haze. Okay. Which I learned is a sign of an electrical fire, by the way.
Someone was toking that chief in your living room.
Probably. Someone was smoking hydro. I don't know any
hydro.
Terms.
You don't smoke hydro.
Yeah, you do.
No, you don't, man.
Yeah, you do.
Everyone knows every time we podcast that you went to Steubenville because of how you talked about drugs.
They made us smell weed one time.
Yeah.
Did I tell you about that?
Yeah. No. Okay. So someone was smoking mad reefer in your living room, and you went out to partake.
And so, the alarm went off. And, it wasn't like my smoke detector's gone off when cooking, more when my wife cooked. No, I'm just kidding. Sometimes when I'm cooking, the alarm will go off and that's no big deal. But this is like middle of the night. It stopped all of a sudden, but like we went into the bathroom and it was like still smoky. And so I called 911 and I was like, talk to fire. And I called the fire guy and they were like, you should get everyone out immediately. And I was like, so like pull the fire alarm, and they were like, yeah. And I was all right.
So there wasn't, to be clear, there was no discernible source of fire in your apartment.
Yeah, there was no like fire. But I called the fire department and they were like, describe it to us. And I was like, it's white and it's hazy and I don't think there's a fire.
Department. The fire department is fire. Hey, there's a fire. Yeah, could you just describe it to us so that we make sure that you know what a fire is? It's like
no, it's like I know, but I was telling them, but it was like I don't see flames.
It's hot and
there's
it's here.
No flames. There's no flames. But I was like, there's smoke, and where there's smoke, there's fire. And so I was like, look, there's smoke in our apartment. It looks hazy. It's not like black billowing smoke, you know?
Right.
It's like, and it's there's no discernible source of fire. It doesn't smell like a fire. It
looks like a scene out of Blade Runner 2049 right now.
Never saw the film. Never read the book.
We should watch it sometime. Ryan Gosling is electric, and I'm literally him every single scene.
Okay, I'm excited to watch it with you. Yeah. But anyway, so I call them, and they're like, "You should get everyone out." And so I pull the alarm, right? And so that was crazy.
So your whole building evacuated
at 2:00 in the morning. Everyone.
So is it one of those where you like came out and you're like, man, who pulled the fire? Like, who did that?
Yeah, exactly. Because in our old apartment, there was a kid who was like on the spectrum who lived in the apartment building with us, and one time he pulled the alarm because he thought he smelled smoke. And as everyone walked out, he was standing in front of the door like, "Hey, sorry guys, I pulled the alarm. I thought I smelled smoke." I was like, "Hey, Brandon, don't tell anybody. Just don't talk about it. You're good. Everyone, you don't have to tell us that you pulled it. We'll just be like, what happened?" But anyway, I'm standing there with my wife and my son. I'm like, crazy, a fire alarm got
wild. What the heck?
And they're like, who lives in apartment? I was like, 2. They're like, who lives in apartment 2? And me and my wife were like,
dang.
And I had to go up and like talk to them and tell them what happened. But instead of being like, oh, why'd you wake us up from? Everyone's like coming up to me and like asking me like, hey, what happened? Describe. They're like, oh yeah, thanks so much. Like you did the right thing. Really appreciate it. Like,
good.
Yeah, like you.
And
guys,
then you guys all started a Bible study, and you were holding hands. You're singing on the lawn of the apartment.
And they told it. They went over the building. They went over the building twice. They went over our apartment 3 times. The apartment next door. The apartment next door. Our next door neighbors. It's a young couple. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you guys didn't like lock your door, did you? And they were like, no. And I was like, because like they brought an axe upstairs with them. So like, I don't know if you're gonna have a door after this. Sorry.
Oh no.
But no, they didn't get axed. But yeah, they went over everybody. They went over everything, and they didn't find anything. And I asked like the head fire guy.
Yeah. I
was like, so what could it have been? Like, could it have been the humidifier? And he was like, definitely not. He was like, we saw the haze when we pulled up. Like, it was definitely not too much water vapor in the air. Like, that would not have caused haze to last that long. It probably was an electrical fire that started and it dissipated, and like something electronic burst. It short circuited or something, and it.
But they couldn't find it. That's crazy that they just couldn't locate the source of it. Which now means that what if it happens again?
I know. I was like, so I did not sleep well for the rest of the evening. I was like,
dang,
what? Something worse happened.
Yeah,
but it was crazy. I got to pull a fire alarm. It was fun.
That's so fun. You're kind of like this is like a local hero in a way.
Yeah.
You saved the lives.
You know
of
what?
Dozens.
Now that you mention it, I'm kind of a hero. Yeah.
I think I'm going to contact Fox News Melbourne.
Fox 35.
Fox 35 and say, hey, listen here. I
forget all that. Not a big enough market.
Forget all that other crap you're commenting on about Miami-Dade County and about the election. I don't care about that. I care about the real news. This man saves lives while having a podcast and a son, and he deserves credit.
They should have given me a little badge that said junior firefighter.
Dude, a little badge would be so hard.
If I had a little badge, dude. Oh my gosh! Forget all of the things we talked about earlier this week. We got to get ourselves badges, bro.
Yeah.
Junior firefighter badges, dude. Junior sheriff deputy badges.
How many services can we collect badges from?
How many? Yeah. How many juniors can you be? Like, can you be a junior pilot and a junior firefighter?
Should we issue junior podcasting badges? as a Patreon reward.
That'd be so funny, man. Dude,
Yeah.
all it takes for like thank you gifts, it does not take a lot to make a human being feel special.
No.
I was handed a vacuum sealed insulated mug, not one of the
Oh,
expensive ones, like one of the cheap ones today. And I felt I was on top of the world. I was
wow.
meeting with I don't it wasn't a cheap one. I'm sure it was expensive. I'm sorry. It was a nice one, but it wasn't like a
It was
Yeti. I'm not saying it
nice.
was a Yeti,
It was
right? I'm
nice.
saying it was like it's the Star Wars one that you have. You know what I mean? Those
The
cups.
Tervis?
Yes, that's exactly the brand.
Wow.
Not a
You got a
bad brand,
Tervis.
right?
Yeah.
I got a
Yeah, it's not a
Tervis.
bad brand.
No, it's not a bad brand.
Not a bad brand.
It wasn't like a
It's
$50
not
piece
the most
drinkware.
expensive brand by a long shot, but it's a nice
But
brand.
it's a nice brand. Girls aren't
Yeah.
gonna be lining up outside of Target at 4 AM to get one. But I was meeting with the development director at my at Ascension. I used to
Mhm.
go there for elementary school, and I posted a Twitter thread last night about how Ascension like did my family dirty when I went there.
Oh, and they gave you a mug to make up for
No, no,
it?
no, 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 no. Everyone who that applied to is long gone. Like it,
Okay.
and
Gotcha.
I was meeting with the I posted a thread about how like we kind of like my brother was bullied. He got expelled because he retaliated, and the person who retaliates always gets in trouble. And so my
Yeah.
family kind of got ostracized from the school. We lost a lot of friends. Like a lot of people, I was like, oh, I
Mm,
wonder whatever happened to that guy. It was because we just didn't hang out with them anymore because their parents like we got kind of
yeah.
ostracized from the school. We never felt like we fit in anymore after that.
Yeah.
And I never really considered myself like an alumnus of Ascension because we
Right.
left so abruptly. But today, like the development director was like, "Oh, you're an alumnus. He's
Hmm.
like, here, take this alumni mug." And I was like,
Yeah.
I am.
I
Yeah.
am an alumnus. I
I
did
like felt
graduate from this
honored. I
place.
felt honored.
Yeah. Look at
Yeah, you
you.
know. I know it was a really good feeling. And so I was like, next time I do my like my little drop offs with my
Mhm.
magazine, I'm just gonna buy like a case of candy bars and just hand a magazine and a candy bar. It's like, hey, Merry Christmas, like Happy New Year, like here's a little gift. And those little things like they make people feel really nice. And it doesn't take
Mhm.
much, So what
You
I'm
know
saying
who's
is we should spend hundreds of dollars on junior
Oh,
podcaster badges and send them to our patrons. That's
what a
the moral of the story.
what a heartwarming story that results in us having to spend hundreds of dollars
On custom
on
3D printed badges.
custom 3D printed podcasting badges.
We gotta do it. We gotta do it.
Man, we're so good at business.
We're
That's what
so good. Oh,
people
dude.
don't understand
Oh, we're
about us is that
so good at
we have
business.
such tight business acumen that nobody can compete with us.
We're so good. I am so good at lighting that I put the key light directly in front of my mic so it casts a shadow on my face.
I
Look at
was
that.
gonna say
Is
you're
that
looking a
awesome?
little bright. You're looking a
Oh, you
little
think so? You
yeah,
think
you
so?
just are. Yeah, I
Boom.
do.
Boom. Boom. Oh, bringing down the we're bringing now I
Not
look
that
like
far.
I'm
A little
no, not that far.
brighter. Right there. Yeah. There you go. Okay, quit. That's ludicrous. I don't know
A little smile.
how I could survive with you. Um,
It's tough.
well, I'm sorry you had a fire. I hope everything stays safe. If it were me, I would set another fire on accident and then but pull the alarm, right?
Yeah, of course.
And get everybody out of there. And then this time set up like an oil spill or something so that the fire truck kind of spins around on the road multiple times, but nobody gets hurt. And then the
Leo,
building burns down. You get a nice check from the apartment company and you get you move to a house, a cool house. And we
that's
start a
the point.
content house, you and me.
This is never yeah, oh yeah. A
In
content neighborhood.
Miami. In Miami. Sí, se puede.
It was Leo was like at first like, "Why are you guys waking me up?" And then the fire trucks came. He's like, "Dude, thanks.
Dude,
I was so
amazing.
happy.
This is the greatest day of
This
my
is
life.
the thank you so much for waking me up for this." Like big truck, guys in fun outfits. This is so it's going up
Let's
so high
go.
on the little
Yeah.
ladder. They like moved the ladder into position and started going up on the building, and I was like, "That's not a good sign." They don't do that when there's nothing to worry about.
Right. My next door neighbor is a firefighter, and so we got a little thing in the mail because we live in like a township that's like not a big suburb. So like my actual municipality that I live in is a very small city government, you know. So they don't have a real
not a fire department.
fire. There's not a fire department. They have a volunteer fire department. And we got a little like a bill in the mail that was like pay $25 for the fire department. Or if you need its services and you don't pay the $25, then we'll charge you $450.
Huh.
And
good way to do it.
And I said, why would I pay for a fire fighting service when I live next to a fire? Like I can just go next door and just say, hey,
hey, there's a fire.
I gotta, could you just, can you just hand him the garden hose?
Like, could you just, extra, like,
you just handle this?
Yeah.
And then I have a spare hat, you know, like a little plastic. I just pop that on his head. Can you just, got you in uniform. Get over there, get after it.
You gotta take care of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
We decided to stand right in front of the fire hydrant, which was a funny choice.
Yeah.
They were like, hey, excuse me. And I was like, oh, that
this is like the one time that we need this thing.
Yeah. I was wondering what they were gonna do with that. That's crazy.
Yeah. Anyway, well, that's a great story. I think speaking of big fires.
Oh yeah, the nuclear war in Canticle for Leibowitz.
Well, the nuclear fire in a Canticle for Leibowitz is not one to be trifled with, and I would like to speak about this novel. This book is great. If you've never read it, A Canticle
I haven't.
for
I wanted
Leibowitz.
To ask you because I've heard about it multiple times.
Yeah,
like
what do you want to know? Right? It is a classic. It was written in the 50s.
Basic plot?
The basic plot of the novel is, and I've only in my rereading, I've only read parts 1 and 2 recently, but I've read the whole book a couple years ago. But essentially, it drops you in media res, like 600 years into the future. So it's like the year 25 something, right? And everything's been decimated. And it follows the story of this small order of monks that are dedicated to all the monk things, fasting, prayer, all this stuff, but also to the preservation of what they call memorabilia, which is any fragment of writing that they can find from before the nuclear holocaust. Because what happened is similar to like a Kurt Vonnegut story, but like what happened is that all the nuclear war broke out, the whole world was decimated, and then the survivors rose up against all of like the knowledge class and killed every scientist, every doctor, every librarian, everybody who had anything to do with the creation of the bombs. They were killed, and all the libraries were burned down, all the books were burned, everything was destroyed because the people were so it would never happen again, right? Which obviously sent the world cratering into the dark ages. And so there's this Catholic order of monks that exists to preserve the knowledge, which is very cool. So we're 600 years into this project, and the whole first act is about this one brother who finds and Leibowitz is like the guy who started it, right? So like he was a scientist and he organized people to come together and like preserve it. He was one of the guys that invented the bomb, but he repented, he became a monk, all these things. So he finds some of Leibowitz's writings. It's like a schematic for some diagram for like a electronic component that went in the nuclear delivery system or something. And so it kicks off this whole new wave of discovery on accident. And then you fast forward another 600 years to the next part of the book, and this is like the beginning of the Renaissance age. So they've rediscovered like gunpowder, and they've rediscovered some other types of technologies, and there's more governments that are more positioned and strengthened.
They're like reliving the last like 20 centuries, right? But after a nuclear.
It's a cyclical history. And then, so you go through this whole middle part of the book, which is what we're going to talk about today. And it's all about kind of these Galileo-esque figures that are rediscovering these huge tenets of physics and optics and electromagnetism and all these different like theories that would then allow you to build things like light bulbs and cars and etc.
And nuclear bombs.
And nuclear bombs, right, which is obviously a big worry. And then the last part is you go another 1,000 years into the future or whatever. I don't know how far it is, but they've rediscovered nuclear weapons. They've rediscovered spaceships. And it follows this priest who ends up becoming a bishop, I think. And he gets put on the last spaceship that flies away from Earth as the nuclear holocaust happens all over again on Earth. But there's humanity left on the spaceship, and they go up to colonize the stars. So it's a great story. follows the same like abbey throughout the whole book. So it's like you're following the same lineage of monks throughout the whole, and there's some kind of fantastical elements that happen. So there's this one guy named Benjamin who is a Jew, and they lead you to believe that
say
he's
it like that.
I didn't mean to say it like that.
You could have said it more normal.
How do you want me to say the word Jew? It's a tough
not
word.
Like that.
How would you say it?
Jew.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah. Say it like Jew,
Jew.
Oh gosh, no, not like that.
So he's an Israelite, and he
he's a child of the promise. We'll say.
And it leads you to believe that he's the only one left. And because that he's the only one left, it also kind of leads you to believe that he has some type of supernatural life. So he exists in the first part of the book, he exists in the second part of the book, and he exists in the third part of the book. So he's kind of this through line of like this guy, and he's always looking for the Messiah. So when this big scientist comes to the Abbey in the second part of the book, he like wants to meet him because he wants to know if he's the Messiah. There's a very interesting kind of other, and there's mutants and other stuff, like weird things that happen in the background that are kind of fantastic. But I wanted to talk about the second part of the book because I think it's really interesting. And I knew it was interesting when I first read it, but I did not get it when I first read this book, because I was like 22 or 21. I didn't really understand what I was reading. But the second part of the book, I think
I
is kind
remember you telling me about this book.
Probably.
When we were 20.
You should read it. We're on the cusp of a new technological leap, and there's this guy named Thon Taddeo. I don't know how to say his name, but Thon is like an honorary title. So they call him the Thon. And he's what? Am I saying it like Jew?
No,
again?
It's just kind of a funny. No. That's just kind of a funny word.
Yeah. So the Thon is like a scientist philosopher, right? And he's genius, cool, yeah. Mega genius. He's doing all kinds of discoveries, and he's, even the brothers in the monastery know about his works because he's so renowned for all the different things that he's doing. And so he comes to the monastery because they have centuries and centuries and centuries of documents, and he wants to study the documents, make whatever discoveries he can. And this guy is kind of the paragon of sort of the progressive naturalist, maybe, or materialist, maybe is a better word.
Sure, he doesn't, like progress for the sake of progress.
Right. Like he doesn't really believe, he claims to be a philosopher, but the only philosophy he seems to believe in is just that of progress. But the other thing that's interesting and really tempting about this type of guy is that he's optimistic, which is really contagious, right? So he has this crazy optimism about what all of these rediscoveries will lead to. So he kind of has an energy about him that draws even the monks to him. Like he's not a Christian. He's not, I mean, on paper, he's a Christian because he belongs to a Christian emperor or whatever, but he's not a Christian. He's doing it all for kind of his own vainglory and for his own pride. But these brothers get sucked into his sort of discoveries because they too are very hopeful. Like even one of the brothers builds his own electrical generator in the abbey and builds a light bulb, but just based off of theory. And the Thon is like, how on earth did you do this? And so they're just as involved. But the thing that he does that I think is really relevant today, and even more relevant in the 50s and 60s when it was written, is the Thon conflates progress or discovery with truth. So like this idea that if I discover something, if I discover some tenet of physics, if I discover some application of optics, then that in and of itself is truth. And that alone is a worthy pursuit. And you can understand how in the late 50s and the 60s, how this would be a very popular sentiment, right? Because we're the space race and the arms race, and technology is doubling like every year. You know, you're getting phones and TVs and refrigerators. It's like, it feels like a bunch of crazy stuff is happening. And I think we still have that, but it's different now because now it's less, it still is kind of about technological progress, but even more so it's like the social progress, which I don't think is as,
and I think
as predicted in the novel as the tech is.
I think people are less techno optimists now than they were
Right.
back in the 50s. Like,
Right.
I think back in the 50s, people were still, like, yeah, we invented cars and nothing bad happened.
Uh-huh. So let's
Yet.
do the Jetsons.
Yeah. Yeah, they were like, let's yeah, this is gonna great, cool. Now I can watch television with all of my neighbors instead of
Mhm.
sitting around the fire.
Right.
Like my life is going to stay basically the same, but be a little quicker
Mhm.
instead of the reality of like the technology changes the environment, which is what ended up happening.
Right.
And no, I think you're right on the money. Is that the way that the people in the 1950s felt about technology, people today think about social progress.
Yeah.
That's super true. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like the way people talk about certain ideas and certain lifestyles is like,
Mhm.
"Oh, it's inevitable that this is going to be the norm. We just have to push for it." And once we finally, I don't know, like discover a way to incorporate this into our society, we have
Mhm.
we have accomplished truth, you know?
Yes. And I think the interesting thing about this character is that he believes deeply in the nobility of man. And that's kind of a driving force behind his pursuit. Is he sees you can see imagine seeing all around you the faintest hint of a great civilization. Like
Mm,
stones with metal inside of them that were presumably at the base of very, very tall buildings. But like
yeah,
you only have the bottom foot covered in
yeah,
dirt,
you have the
and you're just
rebar,
like,
yeah,
right. Yeah, it's like, and then your just imagination would run and you find different things over the years and you find these like you find a nuclear bunker, right? It's a metal room with a sealed door. And there's people like skeletons inside of it. And you're like, okay, how did they built a metal room? They had enough metal to build a room. And we barely have enough metal to, construct our horseshoes, So like, so they find these things and they're trying to piece it all together. But he's driven by this nobility, which the hard thing for me with the social progress is that it feels like this is where I think his character differs from the people that pursue it today, is that there's no sense of the nobility of man. There's no
oh,
like
you don't think
hot
so?
no, not in I see where you're going, but I think not in the way
Mm.
that they think. So like they are it's you are perfect the way that you are, right? Like that's the nobility that the
Sure.
social progress people believe in. It's like the more you that you are and the more that what you believe and what you feel can be made into reality, the better your life will be and the better all of our lives will
Yeah,
be, which is tempting, but it's different than aspirationally saying we can build something great. We can like build something together,
yeah,
because building a great building or building a ship or building a light bulb is a different task than, changing the nature of your sexual relationships
yeah, the
or like
normalizing
changing
polyamory.
nor right, normalizing the laws and the cultural significance of what
Yeah.
you do with your genitalia. Like those are just two totally different
Yeah, I think that's fair.
things,
Yeah, the attitude is less like, "We can build something great together, we can cooperate," and it's more like,
Yeah.
"We will beat everyone into submission until
Yeah.
they agree that I can do what I want, or that
Right.
they can do what they want." I
Right.
don't actually know if it's I don't actually I've started changing my tune when it comes
Oh,
to
bit of a tune changer.
a bit of a tune change to what people, because I've noticed something is that how like the only people who are really fighting for the Latinx thing are like white women. Have
Latinx?
you, yeah, have you noticed that? Like my Mexican mother-in-law does not care about the Latinx thing. You know,
No. No, she
like
doesn't.
she does not care, and my my wife's extended family is like somewhat offended by it. It's like
Right.
we could just say Latin, like we don't need this.
Mhm.
I think it's
Mhm.
very much like we can liberate the individual for them because they don't realize people don't realize how
Yeah.
people don't realize how constrained they are by the social mores and by the fake construction of gender or marriage or
Yeah.
morality. And
Yes.
if we can just destroy the
Hmm.
vestiges, so it's less of like rediscovering vestiges and rebuilding them, and it's more like, oh, let's find the dirt covered stone with metal in it, and let's get rid of it completely so
Yeah.
that the world can just kind of do whatever it was supposed to do without human intervention. It's like it's a divorcing of nature from society, as if society is
Hmm.
somehow opposing nature. Does that make sense? That's kind of
It
what
does.
I don't know if it's like I want to put my genitals places, and it's more like I want people to put their genitals places, you know?
Right.
It's
Well, I
you
think this
know?
goes into my next point because there's an image that's really striking. There's a conversation between the Thon and the abbot. His name
Okay.
is Dom Paolo, and
Dom Paolo.
yes, and
And the
he's an
abbot, what's he
old
like?
the abbot. He's kind of an old, somewhat gruff, but like deep down, he's just like an old guy who's trying to manage forces that are bigger and more powerful than him. So he's kind of
Is
like this besieged, like he feels the forces of the world turning and like he feels powerless, but he just tries to trust in Christ and like lead the monks the best he can because they're constantly like being monks and they're trying to get out of their responsibilities. They're arguing with each other. And so he has to just constantly be like, make
stop.
nice, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but he's a good character. He's like a good and holy man.
Mhm. That's how I
So,
feel whenever my friends fight.
yeah.
I'm like, "Stop it. Stop it.
Yes,
You can't
I know.
develop grudges. We all live in this place and all of our children live here and they're all gonna grow up together and we're gonna for the next 50 years, we're
We're
all
here.
gonna go to the same church together, so you guys
Right.
better calm down."
I do not have time to walk to the other side of the church when you walk in. I want to sit right here in the middle.
Right
Um,
here, we are going to be friends. But, I was gonna ask, is he based, Dom Paolo?
um,
Do we like him? Is he good? Does
we
he have
do
good
we do
ideas?
like
Good
him.
brain?
We do
Okay.
we do
Little
like him. Yeah.
protagonist character. Got it.
He is a lot of it is told from his point of view.
Cool,
I
alright,
think
I'm on his side.
in
I
fact
agree with him.
most of it I think is told from his point of view. So
I'm a simple
he
man.
has a conversation with the Thon and the Thon is kind of defending sort of his approach and he points to out on the street like they're in the village or something or maybe he was telling a story of someone he saw but the Thon points out a guy with leprosy, and I don't think this was
Mm,
on accident by the author. He points out to the guy with leprosy, and he says to the abbot, "I mean, look at this guy. Like he can't read. He's gonna die in a few years. He was born scavenging for everything that he could have, and there's no health. There's no medicine. We have no way to treat him. But they used to have a way to treat him, you know.
mhm.
And when I see him, I see a failed descendant of what was once a great civilization. So like he sees this sick man and he's thinking, what a shame because we
Yeah,
used to be so great. And here's a guy that's dying and sick and shuffling around and not doing anything of importance, basically. And he turns to the abbot. He says, what do you see when you look at him? He says, I see Christ, which is just such a baller line. It's so good.
that's crazy.
I know. I know. It's
This is
electric.
just a this is just a book that was written in the '50s that's just
Yes. Yes. Well, it's
is the
unfortunate
guy
because
Catholic?
he apostatized later in life, which is super sad.
Bummer.
I know. But he was Catholic when he wrote this.
It's okay,
Um,
it happens.
so this is like one of the great differences is the progressives, whether they're technological progressives or they're social progressives, they just see what could be and they don't see what is. And what is
Yeah,
always Christ and truth and his presence and all of these things. Um, and so
mm,
this is like the corollary with the kind of sort of what we were talking about before, but like the Retavern people.
yeah,
So I also see,
which is a meme for return, by the way, for those
yeah.
of you who
So
are not
there's a right,
online.
right. There's a lot of people that are traditionalists that post, and you've probably heard of these guys, or you've met someone like this that says we got to go back to traditional values. That's basically what they say. They want to go back to a time where the mom stays home and you have lots of kids and the man works and the wife is perfectly obedient to the husband and the kids are perfectly obedient to the father and everybody prays and they sing hymns and they don't watch TV and they smoke and they they camp,
They
all
do
this stuff.
barbecues
They do
outside and
barbecues
perfectly
outside,
manicured, white
and
picket
everyone's
fence, and
white, and, like, that's kind of
ironically,
their
it's a lot like the '50s where all these technological developments happened and it got us into this
right.
mess in the first
When
place. This is
yeah,
my problem with conservatives
yeah,
and
tell me.
traditionalists in general is you accept the premise of
Mhm,
liberalism. You just
mhm.
wanna do liberalism a couple of days ago. That's
Yes,
it. That's what you're
yes,
conserving, and
right.
inevitably, you are going to devolve into liberalism.
Mhm,
You're accepting the framework, but you're picking the losing team on purpose.
yeah.
It's silly. Sorry.
That's no, you're exactly right because it's these guys that are saying, "Well, we have to go back because what we used to have was so much greater," is
They
exactly what
found the
this
rebar in the
right.
rock. Yeah.
Exactly, right, like,
Yeah.
they see the remainders of this great civilization, and when they see that, they think, "Wow, what could have been?" And this is how you get incels. This is how you get guys that are angry at women, that hate the whole dating scene, that don't know how to date because all they can see is this image that they've created in their mind of what could have been had they lived 40 years ago or 50 years
Yeah.
ago or
And
80
this is
years
not
ago.
new.
This is
Augustine
not
talked
new.
about this.
Right.
Yeah. Saint Augustine in City of God talks about how people are like, "Yeah, you all say that you wish you had lived 100 years ago, but you don't. You don't know what it was
Mhm.
like. You don't want
Yes.
that. You're
Yes.
just you want all the good things of the past, but none of the bad things.
Right.
And you don't
But this
understand that
is
100 years from now, people are gonna look back at here and be like, "Wow, I wish I lived
mhm.
back there."
But this is also the problem with Thon is that he sees these things and he thinks even worse than saying, "Wow, I wish we were back there." He thinks, "I can make it so that we can get back there." Like he's in
Yeah,
his
yeah.
pride, he's saying, "I can make the discoveries. I can do the science. I can figure it out and I will get us back there." So that's like his problem as a character. Um and it results in this kind of interaction with the church um where he says pretty much straight up to the abbot uh, that him and his colleagues in the world generally, all their like to get to that goal, they're going to soak up anything the church has to offer, take its place, and then leave it by the side of the road. Like that's it, which is great because this was written before Vatican II. So this was written at a time when that
Man called the shot.
when this was not even something like maybe if you were smart and you were a church watcher, you could have predicted that happening. But I don't think anybody in 1959 or whenever this was written could have predicted that that exact thing would occur given Catholicism's cultural dominance in many parts of the United States in the 50s, you know?
Mm.
And
Well,
so,
it it wasn't it was about to dominate. It was
yeah,
like the a lot of American historians, uh, maybe I don't know because Kennedy died in '63, right?
right.
So yeah, it was the ascendance of John Kennedy is kind of marked as like American Catholicism's cultural
This is the
apex.
high watermark. Yeah.
Yeah, was Kennedy's election to the presidency. So maybe that that is
But
that then
but you also
that is
have
a crazy thing.
right, you got Fulton Sheen on the TV, you got Catholic schools up and running everywhere, you have Catholic universities that are
Huh. No,
Notre
that's
Notre
fair.
Dame's playing football, the immigrants are, not poor anymore, and
We
so
didn't
there's
start the fire. Yeah.
right, so there's all these different things that are going on.
Billy Joel is around.
Billy
No, I'm just kidding.
Joel's he's living,
He's
um, but
yeah, no, that's fair.
that prophecy came true even if he couldn't have predicted sort of the globalized world that we live in today, but now I mean, we've talked about this before, but the UN is basically like the anti-church. It's this
Yeah,
global institution that's responsible for works of charity and
and peace between nations
and peace between nations. And
and
it's
military action in the Holy Land.
right, which should be our job if you think about it. That's been traditionally, I'm just saying, if you go back 1,000 years, that's kind of been our domain
Yeah,
of what we would do.
and you're
Um,
worse at it because you're letting all the churches get bombed. You're supposed to let the churches not get bombed. Churches
right.
are not supposed to get bombed.
But we've seen this exact thing play out that the world has functionally replaced the church, and there's not really they've taken all the good that they can from it. They've sucked it dry, and they said, okay, we can leave you here. You're good for kind of social cohesion. And if people want to believe what they want to believe, that's great. Stick around. We'll use you when we need you. But until then, we've got this. Like thanks for getting us here, but we're good.
So long, and thanks for all the fish. Hans Urs von Balthasar predicted this.
Who?
Hans Urs von Bulbasaur.
Mm-hmm.
One of my best tweets.
My favorite Digimon.
Captain Vatican guy made that into a sticker.
Did he really?
My Hans Urs von Bulbasaur tweet. It was great.
Dang.
I was so honored.
That's awesome.
That's the kind of transformative content we like to see. None of this Catholic memes stealing our memes and reposting them.
Are they doing that?
They did. They've done it twice. I watermarked one, so it was fine. But they did it recently, and I forgot to watermark it. Yeah, I'm fine if we watermark it. If we watermark it, that's fine. Like
Catholic
I'm cool with
memes.
that. But no one ever checks the people that are listed on watermarks. It doesn't really matter.
No. They don't look.
It'd be cool if we could tag. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
As Hans Urs von
Bulbasaur said, it was he wrote a little play about the revolutionary and the churchman, and it was a satire of Karl Rahner. And Karl Rahner was like, the Karl Rahner character is like, no, you don't understand. Like he's talking to the revolutionary, the secular humanist. Like you don't understand. Like the Catholic Church was the first revolutionary, liberty, equality, fraternity. We were the champions originally of this, and the revolution is just in the spirit of Catholicism. And he goes, great, so we don't need you then, because we figured it out on our own. So if that's all you are, then we don't need you.
Yep.
So bye. And it's like, yeah, if that's all that the church is. And it's crazy because left and right do this. I like that the Thon is both liberal and conservative liberalism, because he is he's kind of indicative. What?
I just love that you get my points, and I don't have to things to you. You understand that, like the whole point. Yeah, that he's both conservative and liberal. That was the whole thing. He's
together.
Both. Yeah.
And it's progress for the sake of progress, and also a return, which is great because you could only do that in a world where everything's been destroyed and you're trying to bring it back. Like that's such a genius thing that he did. But it's like, but you at first you're thinking like, oh, this is a dialogue between liberal and conservative, but it's like, no, it's a dialogue between the church and liberalism, and because it's the progressives, they will take the church right up to they'll yell and they'll say, this is not what Christ stood for. I hate all your beliefs and everything you stand for, but I'm going to tell you what Christ taught and that you're not following it, that I know what Christ did. And then conservatives will do the same thing, and they'll say, Catholicism is based, it traditional families, all this stuff, right up to the point where it's time to sell a calendar, and then they'll just make pornography. It's silly. Or right up until it's time for a podcast host to have kids, and they don't care what the church teaches about. They don't care what Christianity teaches about surrogacy, right?
Yes.
Like that. It's they'll leave it to the side because they're, in essence, still liberal.
Yes, and this is the last point, and I'll conclude us here. The final dialogue. Things have gotten very icy between the Thon and the abbot. Because military forces are marshaling the guards that brought the Thon. They're taking schematic notes of the fortifications at the abbey, because they're going to use it as a garrison for the upcoming military conflict. And so the abbot's like, get out of here. Like, this is not a military base. You're here because we let you. And what's going on? Like, why now you're drawing sketches of our walls, and that's not cool. And so they're in this final discussion. The abbot is asking him, okay, so you're going to make all these discoveries. You're going to take all this knowledge back with you, and you're going to progress with your comrades and your fellow scholars. Who's going to make sure that we don't do this again? Who's going to make sure that we don't? How are you going to control the usage of the technology that you create? How are you going to ensure that we don't go back to another nuclear fire? And the Thon kind of dodges the question, and he says, so what? You would just have us progress alone in the desert and not share it with anybody like you until humanity is perfect and they can receive all the technology that we've made without using it to destroy? That's not feasible at all. And the abbot's like, no, that's not what I mean. Like, you just need to have virtue. You need to be men of faith. Like, you need to be all these things. And the Thon just doesn't understand this concept. Like, he doesn't understand putting a governor on anything. And he, in kind of his final disdainful remark, he looks at the abbot. He says, "What would you have me do? Work for the church?" And then he walks out. Because the idea that you would,
I love this book. I need to read this book.
It's
Why
so
have I not
good.
read this book?
I
Oh my
don't know
God.
why you haven't read it, but it's this idea that, like, I even thinking about not using something to its full capacity, or even
Mhm.
considering um limiting yourself, or not having
Yeah,
discipline, um is such a foreign concept to this guy, because all he sees is his own pride and his own ability to move things forward, for this allegedly noble purpose, for allegedly
sure.
bringing
Yeah.
about the greatness of civilization, but really because he just wants to be the guy that discovers it. At
Mhm.
the end of the day, he wants it to be because of his own intelligence
Yeah.
and because of his own smarts. And the worst thing that he can think of is doing the exact same work, but for a
God.
higher purpose. Yeah, but
Yeah.
for God. It's like
Yeah.
that, like, he says it as like if it's so disgusting, like you couldn't even dream of it. Um, and again, we see that today. Like, you think about the way that people choose their lives, the way that they choose their careers, the way that they spend their time. I'm not going to give any of my time, treasure, or talent to the church. What do you mean? Why would
Ridiculous.
I? Yeah, you're here to serve me, not the other way around. I'm going to come to mass. I'm going to extract what I need to extract, and I'm going to
Mhm.
go about my day. Why would I? Why you want me to work for you? No, thank you.
No, sir.
Yeah,
That's so good. I gotta read this, but I think the only reason why I haven't read this book is 'cause I get it confused with The Big Lebowski. I keep
it's not. They're not the same.
a
They're
Canticle
not the same.
for Lebowski.
Yes.
That's
Well,
just
that's
your
all the
opinion,
time.
man.
That's all the time we have. There's a lot more to this book, especially this section. It's very rich, and there's
Mhm.
lots of great little cyclical connections and things that happen. I didn't even talk about the poet. There's a whole poet that's in here, and we didn't really talk too much about him. That's okay. And the third part of the book is great too. There's some great stuff about, like, um, euthanasia, right, in the
Oh,
third
cool.
part of the book. So, like,
Prescient.
yeah, honestly, so that's
We're
very
killing people now for no reason. It's crazy.
it's very relevant. It's like this priest tries to convince this woman not to have an abortion, all this stuff. So it's like a really cool section that is more relevant to, like, the social stuff of our time.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm excited to read
You
that.
guys saw
Maybe I'll
a
do
lot.
another podcast on it. We'll see. But let us know what you think. Have you guys read the book? Tell us in the Discord. We have a Discord channel where every week we discuss the episodes. It's bit.ly/crunch discord. And let us know. Have you read the book? Did you like it? Did you think the same things about it that I did? Do you disagree with us? And also tell us what you think about it now. Okay.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
So subscribe now, man. And if you think this is a good podcast and you like it and it's worth money, then because I mean, I'm spending billable hours reading this book
Dude.
and taking notes. You know,
Yeah, dude. Dude, you know how expensive it is to buy junior sheriff's badges for 100 people?
pretty expensive.
Pretty expensive. So if you think this podcast is worth a cup of coffee, consider donating at the $10 a month level. And in exchange, we will give you another free episode. Well, it's not free, but another episode every week on Friday that's released just for our patrons. And we'll give you a little badge in the Discord, and you get a secret chat in the Discord. You get a lot for your $10. The Discord
Yes,
is great. You should join. Thank you. bit.ly/crunch Discord.
you're welcome. This is a great episode, Patrick. Do you have anything else for the people?
We did too many calls to action. We gotta we gotta give you guys a to-do list. All right. To-do list on by Monday, but can you get this to me by EOD? Like,
Yeah.
subscribe,
Mm-hmm.
comment below,
Yep.
bit.ly/crunch Discord,
Yep.
patreon.com/the crunch. In that
Yep.
order. Thank you.
Yep. Great. Sounds good. Love you guys. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks so much for listening.